all the time. He's like, no, I'm not asleep. So the company actually paid to have his eyes lifted so that the robot wouldn't think he was falling asleep. So
welcome to the Financial Innovations Podcast, helping CFOs save money and time by implementing cutting-edge technology. I'm here with Christian Bell. Christian, it's great to have you on our podcast today.
Thanks, Daniel. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, so it's great to have you on. Before we get started, and I know we have a good number of talking points over here and stories that you'd like to share. I don't know if you want to just give a quick introduction about yourself so that our viewers can get to know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Christian Bell, I'm the Vice President of Finance and Accounting for Silgan Dispensing Systems. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Silgan Holdings. So my responsibilities span the entire financial and accounting fields, as well as I'm responsible for IT for Silgan.
No, that's great. So it sounds like you wear multiple hats over there.
I do, as do many of us. We like to say we're all player coaches.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's very interesting, as we talk that having both the finance and the IT responsibilities, how much that can just help in terms of being able to get the business, get technology on board, make sure that the right investments are being made, and not only getting the tools for the finance department, but the infrastructure behind it as well.
Absolutely. It was, I always found it interesting because the whole IT function was born out of the CFO's office many years ago, and it kind of spun off on its own. So for me, being able to take over that responsibility a couple of years ago was a welcome change.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I know one of the key points that you wanted to share with the audience today was about managing multiple global ERPs. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe any challenges that you faced along those lines, and we could get into any tips and tricks for others facing the same challenges?
Yeah, it's been an interesting go since the time I joined. Silgan Dispensing, as I said, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Silgan Holdings, and we're actually the composition of 4 large acquisitions. And so when you have those different acquisitions, and then underneath those, you've got several other acquisitions that made up those businesses prior to that. So you come along with a lot of different systems, a lot of different ERPs, a lot of different business processes. And my focus has always been, I don't want to interrupt, the business. Our primary responsibility is to serve our customers as a company. And so I don't want to create any challenges in doing that. So I'm not a big fan of forcing, consistent ERPs across businesses. I like to find different ways to get at the information, because that's really what it does, right? By forcing multiple ERPs to convert to one, yes, there is cost savings from a support standpoint, but it's not significant. Really, it's about the information control. So, over the last several years, I've tried to work with different tools, different vendors to come up with ways to access that data so that it's not, intrusive on the business. So we use a couple of different tools. So our consolidation tool is called Planful. It's similar to HFM, BPC, Anaplan. It has very similar functionality. I think one of the interesting things that we chose, and this was actually before my time, was that Planful was directly connected to our primary general ledger, which is JD Edwards. And so it pushes all of the data directly there. So any site or any business that's not in JD Edwards, we journalize their trial balance into JD Edwards, and then it's automatically pushed. So that's an interesting approach that I hadn't used in the past. I've personally used HFM quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a controller, many years ago, I had to manually load my trial balance at the end of every month and, run through all the validation checks. Doing it this way, it forces a little bit more rigor around the accounting, because we've got to make sure the trial balance balances before we can load it. So, it's an interesting approach. But that just gets me my P&L and my balance sheet.
Sure.
When I want to manage, working capital, for example, trying to get AR was a monumental task at the beginning to get one AR aging across my business. I found a tool called Alteryx,
Mm-hmm.
which, at the time, the guys pitched it to me, and I thought I have no interest in this. It's just another consolidations tool, just something else that's going to waste my time. And then they started showing, and it started to click in my mind that with the simple algorithms that they can create through each ERP,
Mm-hmm.
I can get one AR aging. I can, find out, where I'm having commonalities of issues from a collection standpoint. So it
Sure.
became really powerful. And now we use Alteryx across many different areas of the business because, we talk about systems and ERPs running the businesses, but there's all sorts of other tools that are being used, especially in a manufacturing environment, trying to extract data and, trying to map it up. And so we found many uses for Alteryx. And then last thing that I would point out, we've been going through a process over the last couple of years of building a data lake. So we've connected 9 different ERPs globally, to pull in all of our commercial and payables information so that we can get, create a commercial dashboard so we can see on a daily basis what our sales are, what our order intake looks like. And then on the payables side, it provides our sourcing organization, what I like to call a fertile hunting ground where they can go and identify places to go drive savings in the business. And that's been a very successful tool for us. We've been able to roll it out on the commercial side, still getting there to some degree on the payable side, but I think, over the long run, it will easily pay for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like, while other organizations might look to say, hey, look, we have 9 ERPs, let's try to move down to one. Obviously, that comes with, a lot of sacrifices on each organization's, side over there. It comes with a lot of decision making and standardization across there. It's interesting because it seems like you guys have moved away from that, saying, keep whatever you have. If it's working for you, that's great. And then let's implement, a tool or set of tools to go and translate all of that into, JD Edwards, which is like your master ERP system. And then from there, you're sending it out for, for reporting and analysis.
Yep.
So when you look to the different tools, I know you mentioned Alteryx, I know you mentioned Planful. What are some of the main drivers of, what makes you say, what, this is something that we should invest in? Like, I know you said, Alteryx, when you first saw it, it wasn't really interesting to you. When you saw the capabilities, it was, but like, what do you look for when you look at, hey, this is something that our organization should invest in?
If it's going to save time, and help, my organization from a finance and accounting standpoint, get away from the transactions.
Mm-hmm.
I think over the course of the last 20 years, actually probably longer than that, 30 or 40 years, the finance function has brought more value to the business through business partnership, having strong business acumen, providing analytics. And so everywhere I've been, the focus has been to get the finance and accounting organization out of the transactions and closer to the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I look for. Even simple collaboration tools like shared documents over SharePoint that help speed up our closing time, that help us get to the numbers quicker so that we can provide value add analysis back to the business of, hey, this is what didn't work this month. Here's where some of our challenges are from a from a forecast standpoint. So that's really what I'm looking for, is anything that can speed us up to the point of analysis.
Yeah, no, that's great. When it comes to, I know you mentioned that you use Planful, for some of your planning and reporting. Are there other tools that, maybe that you either recommend or that you're looking at from a visualization, reporting standpoint?
From a reporting standpoint, we've evaluated Workiva a little bit more on the collaboration side. I think it was too much for what we were looking to do,
Mm-hmm.
because it focuses a lot on the external. And when I say external, I mean like SEC reporting type
Yep.
work. We don't have that. I report all of my numbers to Silgan Holdings, who then has all
Mm-hmm.
that responsibility. So I passed that information along to them and said, hey, you guys might like this tool. I think, one of the things that I've really enjoyed, and think that we'll have a lot more utility for in the future, is the data lake, because having that world of ERPs, getting it into one location, finally getting all the data in one spot, and then having a tool that can provide a good view for that. So right now we're using just a basic report writing tool out of AWS called Redshift, which
Mm-hmm.
is I think it's good for people that are spending all their day in the tool, but it's not so great if you're a casual executive who wants to go in and dig a little bit further. So we've looked at Tableau as sort of a front end to the data lake. Another tool that some of my European sites have been using for many years is called Board, which is really great if you've got a lot of canned reports, but again, not really that exciting for some live analysis. I think in the end we'll probably have a couple of different portals to that data, depending on the purpose. I think Redshift and it's a free service from AWS, so why not use it? I think for the power users, that makes the most sense. And then I think for the executive team, we'll try to source something similar to Board, so we have some canned reports. And then if they want something to dig a little bit deeper, they can go, talk to an analyst.
Yeah, no, that those are great points. Workiva is one of the products that I implement for customers, all the time as well. So interesting to hear that, that was one of the products considered, not only just from an SEC standpoint, but, they also have management reporting, financial reporting solutions in there as well. Did you look at any of those or?
We didn't. We were pretty tied to Planful
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of our management reporting. Our parent company uses Planful as well. It's not the same instance,
Yeah,
but the data structures and the trial balances all look and feel the same, so it's a little bit easier. But so we didn't really look into Workiva for that. We started Workiva to try to streamline some of our US GAAP reporting for our international entities. That's kind of where that was born out of. And it had a nice way of doing that, but to just have that tool for that, it didn't seem like it was, going to be the right bang for the buck.
sure. So if there are other organizations, kind of in the same boat that you were in with maybe multiple ERPs that are looking for, hey, how do I get started? What have you found to be, successful in terms of planning out I'm starting with my ERPs. I want to unify my data. Where should I start? What should I look at? What are some of the things that are going to save some time, maybe some headaches, lessons learned, along the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are plenty of those.
Yeah, I mean, and some of them, quite frankly, we learned on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
A common data language is really, really important. And it's funny, for finance and accounting, we all think in terms of accounting as being our common language. But when you start getting down into the data structures within the systems, what you call a product, what you call the widgets that make up that product, that becomes really important when you're trying to create, pull all of that data into a data lake and then create reports.
Sure.
So, if I had to do it all over again, I would spend a lot more time up front on that common data dictionary, and then go through the pain of getting everybody speaking the same language. It doesn't require an ERP change. And in many cases, it doesn't really require a business process change. It just requires a little bit of work on the back end to make sure that, hey, what you call a widget, I call a widget. So that, when the data comes in, I don't have to do it on the back end with a bunch of lookup tables.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I see a lot of my customers as well that, start implementing master data management systems because they find very quickly that, you call it Coca-Cola, I call it Coke, and the other one calls it the Coca-Cola company. And, it's all referring to the same customer, vendor, whatever context it's used in. And, but to a reporting application, it's seen as three different things because it has three different names to it.
Yeah, that's and we've run into that. Like I said, we're the function of four big acquisitions. Well, two really big acquisitions, and actually, I should five, and three smaller acquisitions. So we all came from someplace else. Some of our businesses, they were standalone before, but most of them, we came from a previous parent that had a previous data dictionary, and now we've kind of all come together, and it can get interesting. And in many cases, we're manufacturing very, very similar products in just in different parts of the world, and they're calling them wildly different things. So, and units of measure, all those types of things get really interesting. And, not to mention, we've got plants in Europe, so their metric system in the US were imperial. So just little things like that, when, you pull that data into a data lake, you got to know how to translate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dealing with multiple currencies, bringing everything over. It's funny because I feel like sometimes it's often overlooked of, just bring all the data together. And, that's kind of like a line item. And it's okay.
Yeah, we'll just dump it into Excel and then we'll do a pivot table. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's interesting to always, also think about, maybe the little details and having that plan and, brainstorming things, what do I not know, kinds of conversations, so that, as you start brainstorming, you can, get some ideas of, well, this is in this currency and that's in that currency. Do we convert it when it goes into the database? Do we bring everything in as is and convert it later? All those types of conversations. What do you call this customer here versus over there? All those little details that seem insignificant always have a way of, building up and becoming much bigger down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for me, like you said, the master data management tool, and thank you for reminding me what that's called. Focusing, a lot of effort on master data up front is critical for any project. Even if you're going to bring a bunch of different ERPs together, do that work up front. That's very important.
Yeah. So let's say organization, they're similar spot, they get to where you've gotten to now. What should they be looking at next? What's kind of the item or items to try to focus on? What's the next big investment that we make?
So what I did was, I laid out all of my requirements from a reporting standpoint. So, every month I've got to report my numbers to my parent company. So that's my last day of the cycle. And so I worked my way back throughout that, 2 to 2.5 week time period, and try to create time. So like I said early on, anything that enables my team to get out of the transactions and into the analysis is critical. So, if I've got to deliver something on the 15th of every month, I know I've got to be done with it on the 13th. So working my way backwards, try to figure out how much of allotted time I need to give to each step in that process, provided me with the opportunity of, okay, here's the chunk that takes me the longest amount of time. It's, maybe a 3-day window where it's all data validation. Because again, I'm getting a lot of data in from all of my different regions, and we're spending a lot of time making sure that it's accurate. So how do I speed that process up? And so that, to me, provides the biggest impact. Because again, if I can take a 15-day cycle and make it into a a 10-day cycle. I've just
Sure.
created 5 days through my entire organization to go out and partner with the business and try to help grow. Whether that's reduce cost or help quote business or do some analysis on capital investment. That's the really fun, exciting stuff that most people went to business school to do.
Sure.
And so anything we can do to speed us up to get to that point is really value add for me.
It's interesting, Christian, that you mentioned, with having a large group, of stakeholders involved in the implementation. I'd imagine that there are, some or, maybe even many that were hesitant or maybe even a little bit resistant to changing to a new system or new technology. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about how you were able to get them on board and bought into what you were looking to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I started this project, some of my regions never really had great commercial reporting, which is where we started this from. But in Europe, they had a really great tool. And so my biggest concern was they were going to say, no, we don't want to, help support this because we don't want to lose what we've got. And so I know, there was a guy who's responsible for that tool who's actually on my team. But he has a lot of influence over the leadership there, at least when it comes to the commercial reporting. And so getting his input and making sure that he was at a seat at the table during the design phase, understanding what was important for them, and also, providing some insight of, hey, this doesn't work with our existing tool. If we could get that to work, then, that would be a really great win for us. So making sure that he was on board was really important. And then, being able to convey to, the regional leaders of, well, hey, this individual who, you trust very much is on board and supports this. And here's the reasons why he likes it. Was a way for me to win them over.
Yeah, no, that's great. So just, I guess, shifting gears a little bit, one of the topics that I was excited to talk to you about when, I saw it in your notes over there is AI, right? And, it's all the hype now where everybody's doesn't know whether to be excited about AI, afraid of AI. Is it going to take jobs away? Is it going to add new jobs? So I'm interested to hear your take on, how you think AI is going to, impact your business, and maybe will it be a job creator? What types of roles do you see, coming out of your investments in AI?
Yeah, I think, on the finance side, the opportunity there obviously is on the reporting aspect of it. So I think about, is it going to be a job creator or a job killer? I don't know that it's probably going to be net neutral, because what you're going to find is, people are going to have a different skill set, because you're still going to have that core accounting or financial understanding in order to be a part of the finance and accounting function. But how you use that will likely change. The way I think about it is, AP clerks 30 years ago were matching pieces of paper. Now what an AP clerk does is takes what the system spits out and says, hey, this is an error, and they fix the errors. So I think what you're going to see with AI is something very, very similar to that, where you're going to up level that function from somebody who is simply matching two numbers together to somebody who's going to have to interpret the output of a system. And so it's tough because I think, like you said, everybody wants to talk about AI, but I think in a lot of cases, we've all been using AI for a fairly long time in the work that we do. It may not quite come across as AI, but it certainly is. If you think about what a tool like Blackline does to automate the balance sheet reconciliation, that's all AI. It's trying to understand where your transactions are. So, I'm really excited to see what tools come out. That have an AI engine. They're going to get sold that way, and so I'm interested to see what they can provide. But again, if I go way back to the beginning, as long as it speeds me up to get through the transactions, that's a place where I'm going to look to make investments.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's great, because a lot of people were fearful when, Excel came out. Is this going to kill people's
Right.
jobs, right? And we see that, you've got entire organizations just living and breathing in Excel with analysis, right? And so, seeing that, everybody's having that same fear over AI, a lot of it's a resistance to change, or a resistance to having to adapt. But yeah, no, it's interesting, your take. Are there uh, particular tools or anything that you're looking at that you think can help from an AI standpoint, or?
Not on the finance and the accounting and reporting side. One that I've recently taken a look at is a company called Assert AI, and they focus effectively. What they do is they put an engine on existing security cameras, and they will survey your manufacturing field, either from the manufacturing center, either like the front, like from a security standpoint, you could train it to say, hey, that person looks like they're carrying a weapon, or probably more importantly, it can help identify where people maybe aren't being the safest that they should in a manufacturing environment. So to prevent injuries prevent reportable events on the manufacturing floor, or something quite simple as, noticing when somebody isn't or is doing their 5S around their station. So it's just little things like that I think will add a lot of value, because today, if you want to do those things, it takes a person with eyes watching the security camera. So in the future, if you have an AI engine or an AI tool that can do that, again, you're going to free an entire human being up to, go take 2,080 hours and do something productive with it.
Sure. And then I guess the last question I have along those lines is, how do you manage the conversation of, a tool like that sounds great where it can greatly impact safety. I'm sure there would be a little bit of hesitation or resistance from the employees themselves of, am I constantly being watched? If I, go and, make one little tiny, mistake, am I going to have, an army of robots after me or anything like that?
I'll speak personally. Obviously, I don't speak for the company. I'm not the
Yeah.
HR rep there.
Hmm.
But I think we've seen, while there's been certainly resistance to those types of tools, I think we've seen them become more and more a part of people's reality. I know that Amazon uses that technology, and I've heard a story anecdotally, just a gentleman who was a truck driver, and his eyes just sort of naturally drooped. And so the AI engine constantly thought that he was falling asleep. And so he would get notified from his manager all the time. He's like, no, I'm not asleep. So the company actually paid to have his eyes lifted so that the robot wouldn't think he was falling asleep. So I think that, there'll be resistance to that change, but I think, when we preach safety in a manufacturing facility, when I do it, it has nothing to do with my, whether or not I'm reporting something good to my bosses or whether or not I'm saving money. It's, I want everybody to go home the way that they showed up to work. And so there's not you shouldn't have to convince people that, hey, this is for your benefit, as long as we're using it only for safety purposes. To me, I think, the employee base would appreciate that investment that we're making.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I know, we've gone through a lot of points, and I really appreciate, Christian, the time that you spent with us here today. Hopefully we can have you on again in the future. It'd be great to, have a look back of, where you were X years ago or months ago, whatever it is, and and where your organization ends up. But just for any of our audience looking to get in touch with you, is there what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
The best way is to reach out to me is through LinkedIn. I think that's probably the simplest tool. I get a lot of email these days and it's tough to even filter out that junk email. I wish there was better AI around that. So I think LinkedIn is probably the best way for people to get a hold of me.
Be sure to follow Christian on LinkedIn. Well, that's all the time that we have on the Financial Innovations podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for the most up-to-date guests and updates from our